Great. And we are live on YouTube. All right, guys, this is going to be fun. I'm going live on Facebook right now into the collaboration network group, and I'm showing my fancy skills, and I'm trying to go live on in the challenge group too, just to, oh, it worked. I now figured out how to do this. So that's exciting. All right, you guys. Well, I'm excited because I have on, I don't even know, this is crazy, like how to call you, because it's like, we, like just this like transformation that we both went on just from being in each other's like orbits, and having you say yes to me from just like a cold email, of me saying like, hey, I heard that you did this interview and you wrote this book, and please come join me, in the fun that I want to experience. And then seeing everything that you're doing in your world and how that's impacting so many people. So anyway, most of you guys know her, but I have Laura Carney on, who's the author of My Father's List and also co-hosted the Bucket List Challenge with me. And yeah, it's just been amazing to see your adventure. It's been amazing to be a part of your adventure as we continue on with this world. But I'd love you to say hi and just kind of share anything you want right now.
Are you saying that it's weird to you to introduce me as author Laura Carney?
No, I just think like it feels like, so like it's not even right anymore. Like it's because like I mean, obviously author is one thing, but I think what people,
because I'm doing other things.
Yeah, it's like when it's like people don't realize it's like this book that you wrote. Like it's like crazy, right? When you think about just all the expansiveness that comes from a book. So it doesn't even feel like,
It is for sure taking on a life of its own, which makes me happy that I made the choice back in, I think we probably talked about this. Hi, group. I forget to say hi to everybody. I can't see all of you talking like Stacey can, so I almost forgot. Hi, it's nice to see everybody. Yeah, in December, I made the choice to actually say goodbye to the book. Did I ever talk to you about that?
Oh yes, but please share, because yeah, I'd love to hear. I'd love to have everyone hear kind of like what that process has been like.
Sure. Well, basically I was getting to a point where I was starting to get feedback that wasn't always positive as far as someone being unhappy about their depiction. And this happened with a couple of different people, even though I thought I had been extremely careful and extremely respectful and positive about everybody in my life. If you're writing a memoir, it's just a thing that's going to happen. And it was becoming really like, it was tormenting me. It was becoming really stressful. So one day I told my husband, we just I want to go to a Barnes and Noble and just say goodbye to my book, because if I keep identifying with this like inanimate object, this thing that I made, then every time something like this happens, I'm going to think it's me they're upset with, or like I'm not good enough. Like I was just basically like, the book was me and I was the book. We were one and the same. And eventually I realized I'm not the book. It's a thing that I made. And it's almost like, putting it out into the world was almost like waving goodbye to your kid as they get on the bus to kindergarten. That's almost what it felt like. Yeah. And I needed to let it be that kid out in the world doing its own thing. And now I feel like, even though I did that as like a self-protective measure so I wouldn't lose my mind, it actually had a creative benefit to saying goodbye to it. Because I think somehow I knew this creative thing I had made needed to become something else. And I needed to give it the freedom to do that.
I love that. I love that. I talked to somebody once about like when she wrote her book, it was like she had a chance for everything to just like live, in this one thing. And then it kind of was this like release, right? Of just being able to have it be there. And it feels like it's similar,
Yeah, I've noticed that with I've made some friends with authors now, which is not a thing I ever thought would happen. It just sort of happened because I'm in a Facebook group for memoirists, and we've all sort of helped each other out at, the different events we host. And I've noticed the same thing happening to them. Like, they write a book and it's a really big book for them. It's like a memoir, or it's just something really dearly personal. And then it becomes something else. Then it becomes, now they're a teacher and they teach about what they shared in the book, or they become an expert in writing memoirs, and now they're teaching how to write memoir. You know, you could become any number of things as a result of your creative work that you put into the world. And you're right, it just builds, it expands and it builds. But I think you have to have that moment of letting it go.
Yeah.
For it to become what it wants to be.
I love that. And yeah, let's say hi to some people. So I've got it in a few different places.
Saying hi?
Yeah. So we got Sarah's here. Sarah Moses, you've been on her podcast.
Oh, hi, Sarah. I had a feeling she might be here. Hi.
So good. And then Julie, you've been on her pod. It's so cool. Like you've been on her. Well, what's cool is like, so Sarah was part of the bucket list challenge. So she got to see it full on. And then Julie wasn't part of it. She found you like after, and it was when she shared about her book that she wants to write, Hidden Gifts of Loss. That's when you guys connected. And I think that's the other thing that's like really cool. It's like just from saying yes, right? Now all of a sudden everything starts to expand, and people that like maybe aren't part of this one thing or this other, like they hear it and then it's just this like constant evolvement from just being a part of this journey, you know?
Yeah, well, Stephen was sort of explaining to me last night that he views my dad's bucket list, like the actual bucket list, as this amazing treasure that I found, almost like he said, what did he describe it as? I think he called it like there's a moment in Pulp Fiction. And I was like, that reference is lost on me. But there's like a moment in that movie where there's a briefcase, and whenever anyone opens the briefcase, all of this light just comes out of it, and it's like you never see throughout the whole movie what's actually in the briefcase. It's just a briefcase with light that comes out. And he said every time you share the list with someone, no matter what form you share it in, it becomes that for them. And I said, oh, that makes a lot of sense because, Julie, for example, when I was being interviewed by Julie, she said that when she read my book, she's from Santa Monica and she grew up there, and she was reading all the details about Santa Monica early in the book. And she's like, oh, the Rose Bowl, like this, I was supposed to find your book. This book was for me. And I said to her, that's so cool, because it's like the feeling you had about my book is the same feeling I had when I found the list.
Oh.
Like this very faded discovery. And I think it's cool that like that's one of the emotions that I'm translating or transferring onto the people who pick up this art. And I do think that's what keeps happening. And I've been doing some very exciting stuff that I'm not actually permitted to talk about yet, but like I had a big meeting with people yesterday about that, and I was really nervous about it. And I thought, is it okay that I'm handing over my baby to these people who are going to do something else with it? And Stephen was just like, yes, because it's like, you did your job, you told your story about doing the list, and now they're going to tell their version that's inspired by yours. And it's just the same thing you've been doing the whole time. When you do the stuff with Stacey, when you do bucket list challenges, when you meet new people, when you get interviewed, it's always that. It's always someone else is interested in it and for their own reasons. And that's the beauty of art, I think, right? Like it's
Yeah, it's so good. Yeah, it's so good. Okay, we also have Kimmy here. Hey, Laura, good to see you. This is it's so amazing because as you know, I have the new group that I launched, which is the Do the Thing Collaboration Network. And I think we're a living example, of like what happens also when you're getting to do a collaboration, from just the beginning of us meeting, you saying, yes, we did the podcast interview, we did the expert panel for just the book challenge first, and then we decided to do the bucket list challenge. And then you brought the most why is the word exquisite coming up? But like the most,
it was exquisite.
Yeah, like experts together for us. If you guys have not listened to that yet, it is like literally like a really just incredible, just like beautiful way to bring all these people with such just deep hearted purpose in this one place as we were planning this challenge. And it really got us into the energy, of what was going to be. And so we'll even just start there. Just that collaboration alone was just kind of like the beginning of this,
Well, what I've learned is that like attracts like.
Mm-hmm.
And one thing I struggle with as a person who, I'm not proud of it, but I think I'm probably a person who likes security and control. I like to know what's going on. It's just I tend to be very cerebral. I mean, go figure. I've been a copy editor for most of my career. I like making things. I like making things just so. And if you're going to be out there in the world taking risks with your life, it's just not going to happen. It's going to be messy. I mean, I know that's what you teach all the time, but it really is. And you have to get really good with uncertainty. You have to learn that when you let go, sometimes wonderful things happen, and that the people who you want to be with, who you want to take with you on this journey, sometimes you can't. Sometimes they have their own paths they have to take, and that doesn't mean they don't love you. It just means they're on their own path, and you have to be willing to go alone and believe that you're going to meet kindred spirits along the way. And of course, I feel that way about you. And I feel that way about everyone who was in that expert panel we did. Mm-hmm. And I mean, they were able to give me advice as I was doing my dad's list, and I was able to give them advice as they were doing their journeys. And I really do think now that that's how it happens, that as you go along, you at first, if you're doing what feels like an impossible mission, no matter what it is, you feel like I'm a crazy person, like I'm completely alone in this, and everybody I know is going to think I'm nuts and reject me. And that might happen a little bit, but just steel yourself to it and just, let it happen, because you are going to find, as you put it, your people. You are going to find, and your people doesn't just have to mean a community, doesn't just have to mean, like a group of people who are standing there clapping for you. It could mean people who are just like you, and they're going to help you and you're going to help them. And that's what I just keep discovering over and over again.
Yeah, I mean, it's the exact kind of like reason why when you're feeling like, I think a lot of people, they'll stay in that, like, I'm a crazy person feeling, right? Where then they won't,
and then they give up. Yeah.
Either won't do it, right? I have a saying, I'll share it for when the TEDx talk comes out. But anyway, like there's like pretty much what happens there, where it's like, yeah, you're just basically giving up and not fulfilling your dreams. And then, or you actually get with people that have a shared goal, right? And you're able to actually do it. And I think you're a perfect example of that, even right now, where you just said like you've been bonding with authors, right? Because like this has been a journey, it's a whole nother journey where you're starting to, not that you're not connecting with other people, but like because your dreams expand. And then when you're able to now re-identify with people that you are, it helps you feel better. Like if comments aren't good, they've had that experience, right? Whereas maybe someone else can't relate to that, because that it does give you a reason to like not want to do anything sometimes, right? Like if you're feeling like the pull from whatever that is, but when you're with people that get it and understand, it changes everything.
Well, I think most of us are raised, I don't know if this is true globally, but I think in our country it's true. I think most of us, especially of a certain generation, we're raised to fit in. Mm-hmm. In your classroom as a kid, it was like you didn't want to be the problem kid, and you want to be the A student and the good girl, and it's like to have that mentality. And I think within our families most of the time as well, although our families all have their own complications, but it's like to have that mentality for so long, and then to recognize your creative spirit, and like the hallmark of being a creative spirit is branching out and doing your own thing. That's very difficult to trust that, because you've been taught not to trust it for so long. So but I do find that that's what happens. Like just attracts like. My friend Turan likes to say, he's this really great activist I met who's also a school superintendent. He's just this great educator, but he likes to say iron sharpens iron, which I feel like is a really cool thing, because it's like, look at who you're getting advice from, like pay attention. Like, as my grandmother used to say, what's the source? Because
yes.
And another thing I think we've talked about before is, one thing I like to do is what Brene Brown always recommends, which is she writes down the 5 people whose opinions matter.
Oh, I like that. Yeah. That's so good.
Because you just have to be careful, like whose feedback are you listening to, as far as, is it going to help you go where you're supposed to go? And with a lot of these creative pursuits, it does feel like a calling. It does feel like something has asked you to do it as opposed to you just deciding. So it takes a lot of faith to do something like that.
It really does. Yeah, it really does. So continuing on with our journey. So we did the expert panel, and then we did the bucket list. And like, I feel like I learned so much from just being a part of your energy, your world, and who you are. And I've told you this before, I think, but like some of the things that I really love about you are like, well, I love how much you give to the people and how much you care, that like what
Aw.
you're saying is like resonating, with them. And I think the relatable part that you bring so much is, you said it earlier and I wrote it down, but I don't think I could read my handwriting, but it was something like where you make things just so, right? And so you've
I
been,
can't.
you said something like make things just so, where
That's how I would like it. Yeah.
yeah, but the fact that you've been able to expand, like through that, I think that's what really connects with people, because so many people are living in that place and it's really hard to come out of it. And I feel like you're just a perfect example of like when you're tapping into the calling or tapping into something bigger than you, how you're able to like finally, move beyond it. And the other thing that I like, I love that you say yes, like that part where you're able to, like, when you feel it, you're like, yeah, let's do that. But I also love seeing you say no.
Oh, really?
Yeah, when it's like not, when you're not feeling it. Because I'm someone that struggles with boundaries, right?
Right.
And so like it's a really good modeling for me when I get to see, when you're like, okay, yeah, I'm not able to like fit this in or whatever it is. Like I love that. And then I love that you speak like what's like true, like you stand up for like what you believe, in. I think like, and no matter, it feels like, not that I want to say no matter what the risk, but it's not even, it's just, you're so convicted, in like what you want, that you're not scared to say it. And I think that's a really good, like, it's almost like unexpected things that I didn't expect to learn, from being with you. And I love the modeling that you portray, from that.
Yeah. Well, I mean, if we always just bowed to peer pressure, nothing would get done.
Yeah.
And I mean, I think you're talking about instances where I insist, that nobody use their phone while driving,
Mm-hmm.
if they're a part of a live, or, I mean, the thing about it is, it's like, that's true to me in my world, and that's real. Like, I don't ever do that. And, nobody I know would dare call me while driving. Like, that's just the world I live in, because everyone knows that's my policy.
Yeah.
And it is kind of weird in general, I guess, to have policies, but like at some point when I learned the science behind it, it wasn't even just about my dad anymore. It was just the science behind it. I couldn't, as a loving, caring human being, I couldn't abide by it, even if it is a thing people do for convenience. Because most of the time they do, and they don't have any association either with the science behind why it's actually too much for your brain, or with someone could die. They just don't. And I understand that. So I just have to communicate it in a way that is clear and that makes sense. I don't do it with emotion. I know a lot of people who do it with emotion, and that's a problem, because it's like, you can't just go around getting angry at everybody.
Yeah.
Like, no, people don't tend to listen if you're getting worked up all the time.
Yeah.
If you just say, this is just how it is for me. I find. So, I mean, I guess in a way, even though it started as my activism, it has become something that has helped me just as an individual get comfortable with how to say no to things.
Yeah.
And it kind of reminds me sometimes of like when I used to work for primarily women's magazines, like when I was at Good Housekeeping. I remember there used to be these articles for a while there where they would say, hey, if you're on a diet, don't say I can't eat chocolate or I can't eat ice cream. Say I don't eat ice cream. I don't eat chocolate. Because it's like there's something about the I don't as opposed to I can't that makes you feel like you're owning the choice. And it's not a choice that's been forced upon you. And it actually makes the diet more effective. So I think I just try to apply that mindset. Like, here's what I do and here's what I don't do.
Yeah. I think that's kind of cool. Like to even have your, like what we were saying earlier, like have your own internal policies. Like what are your like true beliefs that, feel strong to you, that you're able to then, own that, right? Own that language. Yeah. I love that.
And it's cool in a way that I'm being asked to do these things, like to do these interviews where someone could potentially be driving while watching.
Yeah.
Because it's like, I'm not saying to whoever is conducting the interview, hey, here's what you need to do all the time. I'm just saying, here's what I need.
I love that. Here's what I do.
And at least there's one voice saying that. Probably no one else who they talk to is going to say that, but at least there's one.
So true. Yeah. And Julie just said, finding your voice and meeting all of you amazing people has taken my life to a whole other level. So good. And then she said, having a community changes everything. And hey, Shauna, good to see you. So yeah, so good. So let's talk about so the bucket list challenge, that was 2 weeks. That was in January for those of you that weren't here during that time. And we basically got to do it was inspired from Laura's book, and what that did for the community. I think we did an episode kind of on that whole thing, so we won't get into like the details of it, but high level, the reason why it was so like life transforming for like the Do the Thing community was because of the book, really. Because of the people that read it, and even the people that were part of the other people that read it. It sort of transformed everything. It gave us a deeper purpose, a deeper meaning, and it also it was a really great example of showing how like it doesn't matter where you're at. You could change at any time, and you can expand through these micro movements, and sometimes yours were more than micro, but it was just such a great experience, I think, for everyone to be a part of that. And then for you to come in, each week and help people on that journey was, I mean, unbelievable.
Well, yeah, I mean, even like what my mom said that I ended up putting in the book, this list was for a 29-year-old, not a 38-year-old. That was one of the first things she said to me when I said, I'm going to do this, because my dad was 29 and living in 1978 when he wrote it, and I was 38 and living in 2017 or 2016 when I decided to do it. And very different times, very different people, really, if you think about it, like a woman of my age in our time versus a man, a very young man in his time, different goals, just different worlds. But I think that was part of, the emboldening process for me, was that instead of living as like 38-year-old me in 2016, I got to have like 6 years of my life where, and I think even now it's still happening, but definitely for those 6 years of my life, I was looking at the world through the eyes of a 29-year-old man from 1978. So, I mean, I think that's why it feels almost like a time travel movie to me sometimes, like Back to the Future or something, because it's like, that's weird. Like, it's weird to look at your life through the perspective of like, what would my father be thinking if he were living, of the stuff I'm doing? And I started noticing things like, oh, how I'm treated because I was a 38-year-old woman that I didn't notice before. Because sometimes I think as we go through life, the way other people treat us, we just take as a given, or and not even just how people treat us, but what people think we're capable of. With how other people define us, because we absorb that stuff, and it affects how we define ourselves and what we think we can do. And if I'm now suddenly following the dreams of a 29-year-old man from 78, like, I'm gonna have to adjust what I think I can do. So as I said, it was a very empowering experience for me.
Yeah, no, for sure. And I love that when someone hears about the book and then everything that you did during that time, you would imagine that you've been doing that stuff all along, right? Like they'd be like, oh, like it would be something like you're normally like a risk taker, normally like into adventure. And that was what I think was so compelling for everyone, because it made the way that you wrote the book. So for those of you that haven't get my father's list, but
I better get it because you keep talking about it.
I love it. Yay. Yeah, no, so good. Yeah, get the book.
This isn't a plug, but you keep mentioning
it. Well, yeah, I mean, for sure. And I is this the one? Do you have this one with the signatures of the people?
No, that's in the other room.
Okay. So
Steve, my husband's getting it for me.
Oh, yay, Steven. And so, I think that's what it is you make everyone seem like it's possible for everybody, right? Because normally when you see people taking risks or doing adventures, they've already been doing that stuff, right? And while you're already really accomplished with the stuff that you were doing, it wasn't in this way, Yeah, and so, oh, good. Yeah. Can you share the people that weren't part? I love that. Yeah. So So good. So like that was on your book signings, right? People
Here's
signed it.
that's the mayor of Montclair. The mayor of my town bought one and
Oh,
signed it.
cool.
Yeah, I mean, it's a friend of mine told me to do that because I was like, would you have any advice? I'm about to launch my book. This was a year ago, and she had just had her book come out. She's like, yeah, have everybody at the event sign your book too.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm so happy I did that now because it's like I get to show people this document. It's almost like a yearbook, and it makes sense that I would have all these people do it because the other really important part of my mission, and I think this is what we were trying to teach in the bucket list challenge, and sort of what I was talking about before, is that I just had so many people help me.
Yeah.
I like Stephen always says, like, I'm the container of my father's list. I was the force keeping it going, but really people just became more and more invested over those 6 years, and they were excited to be part of it. So to have people be excited to come to my event, and then I can say to them, will you sign my book? And they just like, they light up, oh, you want my signature? And I think that's so important because it's like, I don't know, I just feel like part of what I'm here to do is to lift people up with me.
Yeah. Yeah. I love that. I love that. Well, can you share, so what came for you, like by being a part of just even like the bucket list challenge and just being a part of everyone's experience? Like what's kind of we'll use you, Julie, hidden gift behind that whole kind of like experience? Was there anything that felt like compelling for you?
I think it is similar to, I mean, you haven't mentioned this yet, but for the people in your group, Stacey and I are now teaching the bucket list challenge again for Melissa Gilbert, which it's a private group, and we might do it again later, but I hope it's okay for us to talk about that. I mean, I'm not going to go on about it, but I had an interview with the actress Melissa Gilbert, and then she wanted me to do something else. And it was in the middle of us doing the bucket list challenge. And I was like, oh, I have this great friend, Stacey Lauren, and she teaches these classes, and maybe we can collaborate again and do this with you. So we're about to do it again, but we just had the book club part of it. And they were interviewing me. They have like someone who runs their book club, and they were interviewing me. And the people who had read the book were sort of like, I think it was one of them got on and she was reading my words back to me.
Wow.
From the book.
Yeah.
He had like 5 or 6 different sentences highlighted and telling me how much those sentences resonated with her.
Yes.
And I think when we did the bucket list challenge, it was like that too. It was just like, it was so different from me just going to a bookstore. For those previous 6 months, I had been going the 20 different bookstores all over the country and just standing up and doing a talk. And then you get a Q&A at the end. So you do get that audience involvement. And then people come up to the signing line. So, I mean, that was always my favorite part, was the signing line.
Yeah.
Because I could actually have conversations with people, and they would start to tell me their story. I think it was because I had been so vulnerable and open with sharing mine. And I always feel like that's where the magic is happening, when someone comes up and connects. And so when you asked me to do the challenge, and we had like a couple of different dates planned, I think, and then eventually we decided on January. And that actually ended up being perfect for me because I was coming off of this tour and I was ready to do the next phase of this whole thing. And to have that interaction with your community and to have it happen so fast, to watch transformations in people, not just from reading my book, but from going through the steps of what I did and recognizing, oh, this is true for everyone. The thing that I did, it wasn't just true for me. Anybody could change their life if they just take these steps. And maybe, I don't know if they need you and I as guides, but, or you and me, sorry. I lost my copying ability for a second there. But, I don't know if they need us or they just need like the steps written down. But I do think there's just something about having that community. Like my dad wrote this list in 1978 and he didn't share it with anyone. He put it away in a wallet and he didn't literally nobody but my mom.
Yeah.
And he knew a lot of people and nobody knew he had this. And to see all of his friends show up at my reading in Delaware, and they're like, oh my God, it's so something he would do, but I never knew he was doing it. I just think there's a lot to be said now for if you have a goal, share it with people. Don't be afraid, because I think people do get very afraid. They don't want to talk about it because then it's like, oh, well, look at how foolish I'll look when I fail. And that's not, I think, how it's supposed to work. I think it's like, so now basically I've been taking like huge swings in my life with things that I've been doing. And what I'll do is like, I'll be very selective about it, but I do have like certain people I will tell about the process with the huge swings. And I don't hide it because I do need to talk about it because it's what I'm doing. And I don't get like, oh, well, what if it doesn't work out? Because I don't care what those people think if it doesn't work out. But you don't have to tell everybody. Like, we're living in a time where people share everything on social media. Like, if you're working on something, don't tell everybody about it, but do tell people and do share it, because it just like, I don't know, you don't know who might be praying for you. And it makes it, the energy of it just lifts up. It gets more powerful if you share it, I think. And I think that's what your group does. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. I was just going to say, and what's really good is when you're with people that maybe you don't have, like, they don't know who you were sometimes, and so it kind of like lets you be who you want to be even more, because they're not like there's not this like, anyway, it just feels more aligned sometimes, depending on what your situation is with your personal network.
Well, I think both could be true. I think there's a freedom into your group because it's private, and because there are other people there who are also like reinventing themselves. So you're sort of kindred spirits in that regard. But I also think there's something to be said for those people you've known your whole life, because those are the people who, when you are going through these big changes and you're sort of like, where's the ground? I can't find it.
Right.
They can help you and say, hey, you're still you, and I know who you are, and you don't have to worry about this transformation you're going through, because you're never going to compromise yourself. Like, you're still going to be the same person I know you to be. Like, that's really important too.
That's such a really good point. I love that you just said that. Shauna said she got to meet Melissa Gilbert when she did a book signing in her town. She's such a sweet person. So good.
She's really nice. Yeah.
Yeah. So let's talk about this Prairie Pioneer project, if we can. Yeah. It's really cool because, I got to be a part of the book club, which was like amazing. And that's what I wrote down. You said earlier, it's like, it is that, it's like this now you're bringing it all to life, right? Because you're hearing other people's feedback, and then they're sharing their own story. And there was just such beautiful moments shared through that. And so now we're getting to take it on the road,
Go take the show on the road, like I've said.
On the road. I love it when he said that.
I heard from Leslie Kane yesterday. She wants to do one this summer.
Really?
So I'll let you know.
Oh, good. That's awesome. Oh, yeah. I love her. She's Why Not Today, right? Is it?
Yep.
Yeah, that's great. I love her. It's cool because now it's like we're getting to. So it's new for me, because I'm like, I've always done it for my own people. And so it's great. It's like an expansion now, where now it's like, okay, I'm getting to know another audience, it's really exciting. But like, yeah. So just, you want to share just a little bit just about how you're feeling about doing this and what this feels like to you?
I just was so excited you were willing to do it, because I wasn't sure how much of what you do with Do the Thing is sort of like proprietary. I mean, obviously it's your thing. So it's like, this is a collaboration. And I wanted, it was a little bit nerve-wracking for me, because here I'm taking two different areas of my life, meaning my relationship with you and then my new relationship with the people at Modern Prairie, and just combining them and like hoping it works.
Yeah.
But I find like, this is a perfect thing for us to talk about in this particular live, because really that's what I'm talking about, is what collaboration is. And I mean, you've actually seen me experience this, because, me being me, I'm going to like talk about it when it happens. I can't not talk about it. Like, I'll sit there and watch you guys talk to each other in a meeting, and I'll just be like, oh my God. Like, these people are working really well together, and it's happening because I introduced them, and my book gave birth to this. And like, because I just see so much potential for you working with them in the future. And, I don't know if that's a thing that, I mean, I didn't realize this when I wasn't creating collaborations with other people. That's such a beautiful experience to have when you're the reason. I mean, I'm preaching to the choir here because you do this like regularly, but when you're the reason that two other people got together, two other people who can really help each other meet, and it's not just like a love connection. Like it's like, that's what I think of with matchmakers, but really I've become like, just by the nature of the work I've been doing over the past 6 or 7 years now, I've become someone who has a very wide network. So if I meet someone and I can think of someone else who's going to help them, I can put them together, and it's really fulfilling. And I think that's what is making me the most happy about this Prairie Pioneer project.
It's so cool. And then there's so much amazingness about it. I can't wait to like do it with them. It already feels so good. Like the energy that I felt on that Zoom, everyone had their camera on. It was like, just like 120 people, it's just like such a cool experience to just even be a part of that. And the surprising thing through this, I mean, there's a lot of surprising things, and we'll kind of like probably download it after, but their team is amazing. And we came up with this whole thing with the Prairie Pioneer Project. And then all of a sudden they were like, well, why don't we just call it a Do the Thing challenge? And I was like, really? And so, because at that time I was just doing it because I wanted to stay with you. I thought my logo and my stuff would be somewhere, but I like didn't know what it looked like. And so now this thing that they've just like done where they were like, why don't we just call it a Do the Thing challenge? That makes sense. Now I'm like, wow, this is really interesting. This is like a thing on its own, right? And it just has opened up like a lot of more things where now even the people in my program, I'm like, oh, maybe you guys could do a Do the Thing challenge, because everyone wants to do dares, and I've been like resistant to them doing dares, just because it's like I didn't want to desensitize the whole thing. But I'm like, if it's part of a Do the Thing challenge, then it makes sense because it's all part of the same thing, and then I can use the formula. And it's like sometimes people will try to do dares like outside, and it doesn't work the same way because they're not using the formula I've embedded. And so anyway, the point is it has opened up a whole new world, like for me personally, just from like her saying that, and then me get it, like seeing it as a different idea. Like everyone can do it, which is really cool too.
It's like it almost became its own concise brand to you.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, in that moment when she's like, why don't we just call it a Do the Thing challenge?
Which is funny because I think anybody who knows you and sees you doing this already looks at it that way.
Yeah. And
it wasn't that way to you yet.
That way to me. Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, I look at it almost like, when you see those celebrity collaborations like Sephora x Lady Gaga, or something, it's like that's how I look at it. It's like Modern Prairie and Do the Thing are collaborating to make something, and people do that all the time.
Yeah. No, I definitely didn't see it. It was interesting. Yeah. I'm excited. I think it's a really good point of collaboration, and not sometimes knowing exactly, how something's going to go for anything, but just like seeing the alignment of the mission and the purpose and the reason. And that's the thing that brings it together. Right. And that's where the energy and the magic come from.
Well, and I think Nicole is really smart because she knows that it's always better to delegate to people who know what they're doing and to have them do it their way. I mean, that's what I like too. I like empowering people to do what they're best at and not interfering.
And that was the other thing she did that was such a gift. Yeah, when she was just saying that, that we could run it the way that we did it before. And it's like now all of a sudden when it's more freeing now, right? We're okay. I just get to, so it's really exciting. I'd love to go back to what you said, because speaking of collaboration and all of that. So I have been working on getting other people's minds to open in the way that like our minds do when like you meet someone and you're like immediately like, oh, I've got this person, or I know this person. Mm-hmm. How do you think other people can do that? So like, for example, in my collaboration group, I want to be able to like get people to like get out of their thing, and be able to not get out of their thing, but like just being able to like, I'm going to slow down for a minute because my brain's going 5 million miles. But basically it's like everyone around me, not everyone around me, but everyone out there is like trying to sell their thing, right? They're like, sell, right. But what I try to do is I help people like tap into the deepest level of like why they're doing something fundamentally at their core. Like, what was it, that got you to like even want to do this? And then that's the thing that I'm having them then share. And the nice thing is because they're starting from like a small Facebook group. So like what they share in there may not be something that's like comfortable to go out with, but it at least gets it started, And so with that now, so that's like one level, but then the other level is the collaboration, right? And being able to like say, oh, I know this person, or I have this person. And I guess my question is twofold. One is like, how do you think someone can ask for help, And then the other question would be, how do you think they could then give someone else help based on like what you're doing with all the connection points that you're creating?
Ask for help in what way?
Yeah, like so uh just in terms of like meeting certain people, in terms of connecting with others, I'm thinking, let's talk about Julie right now because we both know her, and she's like there's something really powerful happening with what she's doing. So let's say she was gonna come up and say like, okay, I've got this podcast, I'm writing this book, like what would be a way that could help her? And we're talking for everyone right now, but like help her say, hey, who wants to, come join me? If you have any thoughts on that, just in terms of people.
Or are we asking more like, how do they ask someone else who they look up to for advice? Or, how do they invite people to be part of their community?
Yeah, let's do the first part first.
Okay,
yeah.
The first part, I would say, you can really talk to anybody you want. I mean, that's the time we're living in right now. And I feel like I sound like Gary Vee or something. For your audience, if they don't know who Gary Vee is, he's just like this entrepreneur who tells kids all the time, you can talk to anybody because, social media. Yeah. But it really is true. I mean, the first person who entered my mind when you asked that was this author named Stephen Pressfield. Mm-hmm. And he wrote these two really great books called The War of Art and Turning Pro. And they're like my Bibles with how to be a creative person, because what they really talk about is almost like when you become a creative in your life, you're sort of, you have to surrender yourself to something that's bigger than you. So it's almost like you have to surrender yourself to the flow of whatever this creative flow of ideas and whatever this thing is that you're harnessing and you're interested in being part of, because it really is so much bigger than you. And I think that probably what a lot of creative people get really bogged down in is if they start thinking about what they're doing too much as a product and who's going to like my product, because it's the same, I think it's two sides of the same coin of who can I get to be interested in what I'm doing, and am I important enough that this person I admire is going to give me the time of day. And really, it's like, I think you have to get so invested in your particular pursuit, whatever it might be, that it's just undeniable to you. It's like, I'm so passionate about this that I know that this thing matters. And honestly, it doesn't matter if anybody else does, because there's going to be a time period when you're starting out with something where that has to happen. That happened to me with my dad's list and with my book. I mean, I think I've told this story before. I had an agent. That agent ended up dumping me. Meanwhile, he had also advised me to not do anything public on social media. So I had my first 2 years of doing my dad's list where I was private on all of my accounts. Like, it was really just whoever was there in the beginning. It was 100 people or whatever. They were the ones who were going to be there. Sorry, my cat's freaking.
Yeah, no, I love it. That's like what happened during the kickoff.
Yeah, well, my dad is here, clearly. He would love it that I'm trying to teach things like this. It was so his cup of tea. And he was a great salesman too, and I think that is the hallmark of salesmanship, is what you're selling is undeniable.
Yeah.
Because people can feel it if you're trying to convince them of something, and you're too focused on the sale, and you're too focused on how do I persuade you. It shouldn't be that. The salesman has to be confident, I think, in what they're selling. And it's like, okay, well, hey, here's what I have to offer. And it's going to change your life if you do this, because it changed mine. And I can demonstrate for you how it did. But you can take it or leave it. I don't care. Like,
Yeah.
that's been my attitude. And I don't know if I haven't like read a book on sales, so I have no idea for sure if it works. But I tend to find if you just come with a really positive, like life affirming energy, it doesn't really quite matter what it is that you're selling.
Yeah.
Because the person is buying your energy.
Oh, buying your energy. So good.
That's
So,
what they're attracted to. It's like they don't even, at some point, they don't even know what they're buying anymore. Because
yeah.
it's like, I just want more of you.
Yeah.
Like, I want more of you in my life. So yes, I will say yes to you. And I find that that tends to be what happens. And, as far as like reaching out to people for help who could potentially advise you, I think it's a matter of just like I said, you have to have that time period where you're so into your thing that you don't care if anybody else is. And that's what I did, albeit by default. I didn't choose it. It's what that agent told me to do. But now it's one of the most valuable things I did, because there were 2 years there where I was doing the list just for my dad and me. I was not ever a performer. I wasn't like, hey, internet, look at what I'm doing. Do you like it? Because that's, I think, what people get caught up in now because of the world we're living in.
Right.
And that's what I mean when I say it's a double-sided coin, because it's like, on the one hand, how cool that we can put something creative into the world and get immediate feedback. Like, that's the type of society we're in right now. But at the same time, it's not great for percolating something really creative and deciding for yourself what it is that you're doing and making it very individual to you. So I got to have this cool amount of space from societal feedback. I had 100 people who were invested from the start. They're still following all of my posts on Instagram and on Facebook. So it wasn't like I had nothing. Like, I still had something, but it wasn't going to get bigger until I let it be public again.
Yeah. It's so funny. I tell people this in my program, it's like 100 people is all you need to get something into momentum. So it's just funny that you have that number too.
Yeah, but I mean, the other thing is, it's like people talk about your numbers of followers all the time. Like, that's the world we're living in, like thousands and thousands of followers. And you can easily get intimidated by like, oh, look, so-and-so has thousands, or even, the Kardashians have millions or whatever. Right. Yeah. But really, when you talk about like wanting to publish a book or something like that, what agents are more interested in is, are they invested? And I forget what there's a word for it. I think it's invested, but are the people who follow you interacting with you, are they actually paying attention? Do they look forward to your posts, or are they like potentially bots? And that's what I was developing. Because what ended up happening, I think now, is during those first 2 years of my project, I would go on Instagram and be like, hey, here's what happened today with skydiving, or here's what happened today with my trip to London. Here's my recap of London. And I'm sharing the list items that are now in my book that I now share with everybody. But at the time, it was a select group of people. And that meant I felt like I had freedom to be very vulnerable and very personal about what I was sharing. And I think that was both important to the writing of the book I would later do, but it was also important to, I think the intimate feel of my project, because there is an intimate feel to it. I think when you read the book, it feels intimate. I think there is something very intimate about committing yourself to a creative goal, really. And I think maybe that's what people are losing a lot of the time, because it's just like what we were saying before. If you set out to do something as a creative person that's unique to you, that feels like a calling, that feels like something bigger than you, that's not something you have to share with everyone. And most people aren't going to relate to it. It can't be like a crowdsourcing thing. It can't be, what does everybody think of this? Is this popular? Because guess what? It's not going to be popular. Like, the best ideas are brand new and nobody can believe in them yet. That's just how it works, because they're different. And you have to have the commitment to see it through. And that means you have to let go of needing that approval.
Yeah, that's what I love about like getting community around your idea, because like if you're telling other people that aren't invested and they don't care, then it's like it doesn't land. But if you're taking the things that mean something to you and then you're putting people around it, it elevates it. And then even if they're not like I did this when I was doing my singles community, I wanted to do the start a podcast challenge and a lot of them didn't want to do it. Like I didn't let it stop me. I still did it. I just started a new group. And I think there's that too. Like it doesn't mean you have to do everything that like comes from it, but there is some power in putting people around it, but the right people, like people that are invested in the idea, people that are invested in that thing, and that you have shared language around.
Yeah, but I mean, more than anything else, you have to have a conviction, and you have to read books or just consume documentaries. Or, one of the things I did a lot was I watched a lot of biopics about creative people, usually women, because I always ended up watching these movies or not a documentary, obviously, but biopics about women from the 1800s, like a documentary that existed back then. But I think that became my wheelhouse because it was like, oh, yeah, no one understood Marie Curie.
Yeah,
like Jane Austen, like, come on, she had to publish her stuff anonymously. And there's something about those stories that are just so, it makes you brave when you realize what other people have been through. And it's really important to find those heroes, as Mary, our friend Mary Latham says, your pocket full of heroes. Like you have to have that because you're going to become a hero to other people and to yourself while you're pursuing something. So really you have to let go of that need for feedback.
So good. Yeah. Could you share also, because I know there's some stuff you can't talk about, but what can you share about like what's happening for you right now, like what you're excited about with the things?
I don't think I can share anything.
You can't share anything. Okay.
You might see my book in another form sometime soon. Let's leave it at that. I'll leave it to you.
Exciting. We'll have to have you come back on. We'll have to do it after we're done with the Prairie Pioneer project and see where things are, because by then more time could have passed.
But what's really cool though, Stacey? I'm happy you asked about that, even though I can't say anything. What's cool about it is these kinds of things that I'm not naming that I'm doing, they take a very long time.
Yeah.
There's a lot of collaboration involved and working things out, and it is a business. And so because it's taken a long time and I'm now getting to like another, I guess you could say another level of it at the moment, it gave me a lot of time after my book tour to sort of start to define for myself what is this? Like, what am I doing with this in my life now?
Yeah.
As opposed to being like, okay, people who want to come and work on this and turn it into something else, now this is what I'm doing. Like I was in grade 7 and now I'm in grade 8 and you're graduating me. Like that's how I looked at it at first. Like, oh, that will be my definition of success. When really what I needed to do was come up with my own definition of what that looks like for me and like unique to me. And that's been a really important lesson because I couldn't figure out what the heck I was supposed to do after the book tour. And like, I did go through a bit of a depression this winter and I like just kept getting sick. And at first I thought, oh, maybe I'm burnt out, maybe I'm fatigued, but I don't think that's what it was now. I think it was almost like I was I was in a cocoon and I was like molting and then becoming something else, like becoming this butterfly that had to come out.
It's a good visual.
But I had to hide away to do it. And I had to figure out on my own. So what's really cool is now I have ideas for my next book that are percolating. I have a plan with my bucket list that I'm doing. I have different projects I'm doing. Like I have all these things I'm doing in my creative life while also having this other thing that's now happening that's super exciting. But it's not the end goal anymore. It's just a side thing that I'm doing.
So good. I forgot to tell you, this is coming up right now, is because of the book club that you and I did, and then also seeing how people were changed during the Modern Prairie experience and how impactful that was. I've decided to do, I don't know if I'm going to keep it forever, but for now it feels good to do the thing book club where I'm like taking books and just like, I don't know if I'll do a challenge around them, but at least it's a book club where we're
I have a book for you.
Oh, really? Oh, okay. We'll love to talk about it. I have one for July.
You know what's so cool about that is your response when I said that just now. Oh, really? Like you assume it's going to be great because I'm telling you about it, right?
It's true.
Meanwhile, I've already talked to the author in question like earlier this week, and I was telling her about working with you, and I'm like, and she comes up with, oh, do you think maybe she might be interested in my book? And then I said to her, I wouldn't have even told you about this if I didn't think your book was a possibility. And it's like I was telepathically signaling it to her.
I love that.
And then the two people collaborating are like already excited about it on their own, and they don't even know what it is yet.
Yeah, no, it's so true, right? Yeah, it's so true because we're so aligned in that we, yeah, no, it's amazing. Yeah, I have one for July, but it's cool. It like came from after that meeting. I'm like, oh, I've got to do a book club around it, you know? And so, yeah, I'm excited.
Yeah, I'm really glad you're doing that. Yeah.
The Thing book club.
There's just something about reading a book first, right?
Yes. Yeah, it's true. And like when you put everyone around, I mean, I guess it's my people. Like you're basically, I mean, that's what it is. It's the piece of the Do the Thing formula. It's the my people and the goal is the book, you know? So I didn't think about it like that. There you go. Connection point. Oh my gosh. Well, I don't even know how we're at time already, but this is amazing. It's always so fun to talk to you. And I love that you're a part of just the community. Thanks for bringing me on your adventure now with what we're about to embark on. So I'm excited about that. And yeah, thanks for just sharing your gifts with the world and everything that you are doing for people just by you doing the thing, really, you know, when you think about it.
I mean, I'm grateful. I'm so grateful for your community and for you. I mean, I'm one of you guys, like you helped me a lot. I mean, there are moments this winter when I was really struggling and I would just come back in and just like write a little. I think I had like 5 that I wrote and then I deleted, and you're like, no, stop deleting them. I just don't know if it's okay for me to vent here. But like really, like just the whole energy of your group is so sustaining to everybody at every stage of their journey. And I feel like I didn't fully answer this before, but you know, like I was talking about Stephen Pressfield and his 2 books and how they helped me so much with learning how to be an artist. Really, like if you're going to be an artist, and this is what he teaches all the time, your job in the world, and I guess this is probably true with being an entrepreneur or being any kind of creative person, your job in the world is to further the creativity of everything, not just your thing. And that's, I think if you take that perspective, that's when you get really good with the collaborations. Because it's like you become someone who's almost like, okay, art and creativity are this like invisible monster. Like they're like a being, an energy in the world, and I get to be the eyes of it. Like I get to be some of the eyes of it. So I'm a scout and I'm looking for it all the time. Yes. And when I see it, it's my duty. It's my duty to help lift it up. It's my duty to bring it to the attention of other people, like not just mine, because there's something about the energy of giving in that way that, I don't know, it's almost like, what's that saying? A rising tide.
Oh yeah. Yeah.
Right. So if you decide to become a person who's like, oh, I lift this person up, I lift that person up, I'm going to bring this person to people's attention, the energy of that giving starts to affect your thing too. It's like a joining that happens, as opposed to, no, this is mine and this belongs to me and you can't have it and don't steal my ideas. Like that's not a creative energy. You have to go with the flow of what is supposed to happen.
Yeah, it's so funny you said that because I kept, well, you know, Dr. Nancy D'Andrade, like I'd had some sessions with her around the dare because like whenever people were wanting to use the dare, I felt like a restrictive, you know, and I've never felt that like, it's not scarcity, but it was like, oh my gosh, my dares, you know? And so I was like trying to identify what that was coming from, you know, and I couldn't, other than maybe me not feeling special anymore, you know, which was like a thing. And so, but it was like, once I kind of like released it, you know, and when we worked with Modern Prairie, and I was like, oh yeah, you guys could use the dares. Like we kind of need them, right? Like in order for it to work like the way that it was. And so it was the connection point though, from the dare to the formula, because they were wanting to use the dare without the formula. And then it will, if it doesn't work, then it's ineffective and it kind of like dilutes the whole thing. But if it's combined, that's where the magic is, right? And so anyway, point being is I felt it. We all feel it, I think, sometimes, and it's identifying it and being self-aware. Whereas a lot of people, I don't think will become self-aware about it. They'll just like want to hold whatever that thing is in, and then it stays bottled and no one ever sees it.
Yeah, I mean, that concept of control can be really confining.
Mm-hmm.
And you don't want to prevent people from getting the good out of what you do.
Yeah.
By fear of them diluting, I think.
Yeah.
But as far as the only reason I brought up Stephen Pressfield again is because I actually have DM'd him a couple times.
Oh.
And he responded to me. I mean,
Wow.
this is the guy who writes movies. Like, he wrote The Legend of Bagger Vance. Like, he's a big deal. And he wrote back 1 or 2 sentences on Instagram. So I guess what I'm saying is, you said before, how do you ask for help?
Yeah.
You can, I mean, we're living in an age where you really can reach out and talk to anyone. And they're probably not going to respond most of the time, but there are people out there who have gotten to a level of success, who remember where they come from, and they are going to help you. And it might just be 1 or 2 sentences, but at least it's something.
Yeah, I mean, it's so true. It's like even me reaching out to you, like you, and it's true.
Yeah, I'm not Stephen Pressfield.
It's true. I mean, no, but you were, like, to me, you were, I just heard you were on NPR. I heard it was an amazing interview. You were like totally yourself. And then that's who you were to me, like, so yeah. So it's good. You just never know, right? What's the worst that's going to happen is there's no response, or they say no, and to me, it's finding this is my kind of like trick, and then we'll have to end it here, but like because this has been so good, but finding the curiosity in it. I wonder what's going to happen. Like, it's just like, are they going to respond? Are they going to see it? Are they going to say yes? Are they going to say no? And then just having no attachment to that.
Well, yeah, I'm happy you said that, because I think you can't lose the play in what you're doing. And the reason I didn't is I would say probably part of it was because of that one agent's advice to go private for those 2 years. But the other part of it was, I always knew with doing my dad's bucket list that this was an experiment, that shouldn't work. Like there's this crazy thing I'm doing. And it was an experiment for the first 2 or 3 years. And then it started to become my life. But I think to keep that understanding of this thing that I'm doing is still just play. It's just an experiment. It's extra. This is extra to my life. I don't have to be all in, because this is a thing I do that's fun for me, and that's my creative expression. I think you have to maintain that feeling about it, because it's like, if you don't, then you just get too serious about it, and you get into that control feeling, and you get into that, you don't want to get your ego and identity too invested in it. You have to be able to let it go no matter what. Like, whatever it wants to be, like, just to bring it full circle, when I said goodbye to the book in the store, you have to let it be what it wants to be. Because when you're creative, what you're making is its own thing. It's almost like it's another living being.
So good. And Sarah said she loves that. We need to come up with our own definition of success. So good, Sarah. And then different Sarah said, further the creativity of everything. And Shauna said this was so helpful and informative. So, oh my gosh, Laura, thank you so much for doing this. And thank you guys for being here with us in this experience. And I'm just excited to, continue this journey and get to see what you're doing too. It's been amazing.
Yeah, and I'm excited for further collaborations, even if it's not me.
Exactly. Yeah. So cool. All right, you guys, will do the thing. Don't wait for opportunity. Create it. Bye.
Bye.